Imagine waking up one morning and discovering that your retirement savings are almost worthless. The money you spent decades building, the future you thought was secure, gone. Not because you took a huge risk, not because you were trying to get rich quickly, but because you trusted the company you worked for. In 2001, thousands of Enron employees lost their jobs, and many watched their retirement savings disappear. This is the story of the people who trusted one of America's biggest companies and lost everything. Before Enron became one of the biggest corporate scandals in American history, it was considered one of the greatest success stories in business. In the 1990s, Enron was the kind of company people dreamed of joining. It was innovative. It was growing quickly, and Wall Street believed it represented the future of American business. Founded in 1985, Enron started as an energy company, but under the leadership of executives like Kenneth Lay and Jeffrey Skilling, the company transformed itself. Enron moved beyond traditional energy production and became a global energy trading company. It created new markets, developed complex financial products, and expanded around the world. Investors were impressed. Analysts praised the company. Business magazines called Enron one of the most innovative companies in America. At its peak, Enron was worth more than $60 billion. For employees working at Enron felt like being part of something special. They believed they were not just building a career, they were building their future. Why wouldn't they trust the company they worked for every day? The stock price kept rising. Executives talked about growth. Analysts continued recommending the company. Employees saw success everywhere around them. They believed, if Enron succeeds, my future succeeds too. Many workers invested a large part of their retirement savings in Enron stock. They were doing what many people are told to do. Invest in a successful company. Trust the place where you work. The company was using complicated accounting methods that made its financial situation look stronger than it really was. Enron reported billions of dollars in profits, but many of those profits were based on financial structures that hid the company's growing problems. To investors and employees, Enron looked unstoppable. But behind the scenes, the foundation was beginning to collapse. Not everyone ignored the warning signs. Inside Enron, some people began questioning what was happening. One of them was Sharon Watkins, a vice president at the company. In 2001, she wrote a letter warning Chief Executive Officer about serious accounting issues inside Enron. She questioned whether the company was hiding financial problems. Her concerns would later become one of the most important warnings before the collapse. Outside the company, journalist Bethany McLean also questioned Enron's success. She asked a simple question: how could a company continue to be valued so highly when its financial information was so difficult to understand? But for many employees, believing something was wrong was difficult. Enron was not a small company. It was not an unknown business. It was one of America's most admired corporations. In 2001, the truth started coming out. Investors began losing confidence. The stock price started falling. The company that once seemed unstoppable was suddenly fighting for survival. Enron's stock fell from more than $90 per share to less than $1. Billions of dollars in market value disappeared. On December 2, 2001, Enron filed for bankruptcy. At the time, it was the largest corporate bankruptcy in American history. But behind the headlines were thousands of employees whose lives were changing forever. They lost their jobs. They lost their sense of security. And many lost the retirement savings they believed were protected. For many employees, losing their job was only the beginning. Their retirement savings were disappearing too. Many had invested in Enron stock, believing they were building a secure future. But when the company collapsed, those shares became almost worthless. After decades of hard work, thousands of employees were forced to start over. They didn't lose money because they chased a risky opportunity. They lost it because they trusted the company they worked for. But while thousands of employees were trying to rebuild their lives, the people at the top of Enron were facing a very different future. Enron's collapse led to one of the biggest corporate investigations in American history. Executives who were once celebrated as business leaders became the focus of criminal investigations. Kenneth Lay, Enron's founder and former chief executive, became one of the main figures in the scandal. He was convicted of fraud and conspiracy in 2006, but he died from a heart attack before he could be sentenced. Jeffrey Skilling, Enron's former chief executive, was also convicted for his role in the company's collapse. He was sentenced to prison and served more than 12 years before being released in 2019. Today, Skilling remains involved in the business world and has continued to defend his actions, arguing that he did not intentionally commit fraud. Andrew Fastow, Enron's former chief financial officer, admitted to creating financial structures that helped hide the company's debt. He pleaded guilty, cooperated with investigators, and served several years in prison. After his release, Fastow began speaking publicly about corporate ethics and financial responsibility. But for thousands of former Enron employees, there was no comeback. Their company was gone. Their retirement plans had changed forever, and the money they lost could never be fully recovered. Enron was once seen as the future of American business, but for thousands of employees, it became a painful reminder that the biggest financial losses don't always come from taking risks. Sometimes they come from trusting the wrong place. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe for more stories about money, business, and the lessons behind the world's biggest financial successes and failures.